Worst case scenario with Joe Biden, what's going on right now, Ukraine, Russia, World War III.
Yep.
World War III. What the media is not talking about is far worse. So Joe Biden, right now, at this moment in time, put this in your moment in time. So you remember what they weren't saying. Joe Biden is accused of taking a $5 million bribe while he was VP. And there's been new evidence, and of course, it's basically just been punted. So here are 3 key facts about the Joe Biden-Ukraine scandal, which is kind of relevant. Kind of like there's still some unanswered questions with Epstein. With Epstein, bit. I wonder if Hillary Clinton, if the 16,000 emails, her husband was a regular at Sex Island.
Yes.
Hey, maybe we could stop some kids being sexually trafficked. It's kind of relevant. Joe Biden's specific relations to corruption and bribery from Ukraine. Isn't there something going on in that part of the world? So let's go through some key facts you need to know. Key fact number 1, okay, with Barisma. Now, in case you've forgotten, in 2018, Joe Biden himself, former Vice President Biden, bragged about withholding aid to Ukraine.
Yeah.
In order to force their hand to fire a prosecutor, and then I'll explain why.
They were walking out to press conference. I said, I'm not going to. We're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here, and I think it was 6 hours. I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of got fired.
Yeah. Of course, there's also talk of bribes, but don't worry. Just recently, Vice President Biden answered for that.
Are there tapes that you accepted bribes, President Biden? Is that true?
Would you comment on the arrest of the former president, sir?
Wow. Must be nice.
Just to turn around and smile.
I wish I could do that.
I did.
I wish I could do that anytime you're in a deposition or in a lawsuit and someone's it's all the time. Just, well, you didn't answer the question. Nah.
That's right.
And he talks about the $1 billion as though it's his.
Yeah,
it's our money.
I know. And by the way,
you have nothing, Mr. 220 a year that you made as vice president, and you're fabulously wealthy with beachfront homes.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, I like that Donald Trump made some money because guess what? Probably couldn't be bought off for $5 million. Right. Probably wouldn't find ourselves in a proxy war for $5 million because he wipes his ass with that. There is some upside to it, even though I know we're all supposed to hate rich people because naturally human beings are selfish and the DNC obviously performs to our lowest common denominator. So let me give you some information here in case. Hunter Biden was put on the board of Burisma in 2014. That was a Ukrainian energy company.
Having no experience and no right to be on a board is incredibly hard.
And at that point in time, Burisma was being investigated by a Ukrainian prosecutor, Viktor Shokin. Okay. 2016, Biden threatened to withhold $1 billion in loan guarantees to Ukraine if the prosecutor was not fired. He was immediately fired and replaced. And then the investigation of Burisma and Hunter Biden ends. Also around the same time that him throwing a loaded gun into a grade school dumpster and smoking Parmesan with potentially his niece and crack whores ended too. No information on that. No information as to confirming the laptop, just to be clear.
Absolutely.
Here's an important note too, Gerald. A lot of people don't know this. The first Donald Trump impeachment, do you know why that happened?
It was the exact thing that Joe Biden was accused of doing in reverse. Basically, Donald Trump was saying, hey, you need to investigate this company.
To Zelensky.
He
called Zelensky, said, look into Burisma corruption.
Yeah, look into it because this is being covered up or we're going to withhold aid. And they impeach him.
Yeah.
It was a perfect call, if I remember.
It was a Joe Biden call. Is on camera.
I wouldn't say perfect. I would say the best call. Perfect. It's actually better than perfect. It's fantastic. No one has better calls.
Which is a reasonable thing to do. Ending an investigation into a company is not a reasonable thing to do. We have no place in that. But if Burisma, as an energy company, is doing things that are underhanded, that are affecting the United States, and we're saying, look, we're giving your country aid, but you guys are letting these guys do some really bad stuff. You need to look into that. The former guys got this guy fired so that you wouldn't. You need to reopen that. Otherwise, we're not going to keep sending you money to do bad things.
And by the way, that is happening right now, and no one has 0 minutes as of yesterday have been devoted to it. On mainstream news, which brings us to key fact number 2. All references are available at louderwithcrowder.com. Tomorrow we'll get into the presidential records issue. I want you to know why this is being, well, first off, why the circus and why the Burisma thing is being punted. A lot of people aren't paying attention to that. On Monday, Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley, Republican, I get it, but I'm not always the biggest fan. He actually went through, he revealed the contents of the FBI form at the center of the Biden-Burisma controversy.
The 1023 produced to the House committees redacted reference.
A lot of spring chickens in our hallowed
The
halls.
foreign national who allegedly bribed Joe and Hunter Biden allegedly has audio recordings of his conversation with them. 17 such recordings. According to the 1023, the foreign national possesses 15 audio recordings of phone calls between him and Hunter Biden. According to the 1023,
Keep in mind, the Hunter Biden laptop is still
foreign
alleged.
national possesses
As far as
2
national
audio
security.
recordings
We don't know.
of phone calls between him and then Vice President Joe Biden. These recordings were allegedly kept as a sort of insurance policy for the foreign national.
Hey, could you
in
tone
case
down
that he
the
got
energy there,
into a
Chuck?
dice
It's a little.
fight. The 1023 also
give it to someone
indicates
else
that
to
then
read.
Vice President Joe Biden
More
may
pen.
have
Carson,
been
maybe? I don't
involved in Burisma employing Hunter Biden.
That's because he has the jowls that make bees really hard. Burisma. But this is what a politician should say. Hey, by the way, these are alleged. I have to say that. Now, if you know this, the Hunter Biden laptop where he's sexting his niece and having sex with underage women and smoking crack on camera, that's still alleged. No investigation. I just want to make sure you have context as to what constitutes alleged. Give it some context. Not trying to crap on Chuck Grassley. I mean, the guy is just, he's a bundle of energy and he's a joy to work with.
And he had the balls to go out and do this.
What I am saying is you've got to be better in them. They're trying to make it seem like Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. And you go, alleged in the phone call in the FBI form, alleged Hunter Biden, alleged that Hillary Clinton deleted thousands of emails after subpoenas. No, wait, she did.
Yeah.
So you throw it all under alleged. That's what they want you to do. Let me hit this really quickly. The FBI, FD 1023 form, to be clear. Let me give you some quick. It's not a classified document.
Nope.
It was subpoenaed by Congress in direct connection with the Biden bribery scandal, and it was withheld by FBI Director Chris Wray until he was threatened with contempt. And then Wray finally arranged for the document to be viewed by members of the House Oversight Committee. This all happened in the last week, give or take an alleged day.
You know when they had that form? Early summer of 2020. What else was going on in the early summer of 2020? I think it was a presidential.
I thought they were going to say the Chinese getting vaccine.
No. I mean, I know that was going on.
Yeah.
The summer of love and stuff like that. I know that. Yeah, no. There was a guy running for president, and the FBI had in their possession a document. I actually sat back and kind of grinned a second ago, and you kind of saw it. I don't know if you knew what I was thinking. In that document, he alleged to have 17 recordings. Not 17 recordings were found recently.
Yes.
3 years ago, while this person who's accused of taking a $5 million bribe by a foreign national, this foreign national is saying, by the way, I have receipts.
Yes.
Would you guys like to see the receipts? The FBI apparently didn't do anything with that.
No, they did.
The guy was allowed to do it.
They took part in helping to impeach Donald Trump over calling and saying, look, I hear that you have 17 recorded phone calls of the bribe with the, we don't know that much. Look, it's alleged right here. Do you have the phone calls? Was it recorded with a voice memo on iPhone? I'm not an Android guy. They said, we're going to impeach you.
No.
You can't make that call to Zelensky. Think about that. So they did do something.
It's a hit job.
They created a new law. Don't you think that's relevant? You're looking at potentially let's say worst case scenario. Okay, let's say they're not even alleging that Donald Trump, just to be clear, provided any classified information or issues of national security to a foreign entity, right?
No.
Which is really what the Espionage Act. They're not even alleging that, just to be clear. Okay, so worst case scenario, if you believe everything the left says, Donald Trump had some documents that they say he shouldn't have had and he didn't give them over right away because he didn't want them going into his house. Basically, okay, worst case scenario. How does that hurt you? Worst case scenario, with Joe Biden, what's going on right now, Ukraine, Russia, World War III.
Yep.
World War III.
Hundreds of thousands of people have died in Ukraine because of this war. I mean, it could be close to 500,000, maybe more right now. We're not being given those numbers. And by the way, this wasn't this is an unreliable source. The FBI had already deemed that this person was a credible source because I believe they had used his information in the past.
Yes, they have.
So this wasn't
you can't use them one way and then
I don't understand.
the other.
Like, this does not make any sense to me other than they are absolutely trying to rig it. There's no other explanation for early summer of 2020 having this allegation, not tracking it down immediately before this guy becomes president of the United States because he has been bought by a foreign government.
And by the way, the timeline is not happenstance. We'll get to that really quickly. But first, let's go to key fact 3. And actually, Gerald, this is kind of I guess, sort of a pet
so
product of
the
you.
Devin Archer subpoena, right?
Yeah.
So we talked about them being on the board of Burisma, but so Congressman James Comer on Monday issued a subpoena for Devin Archer, the former Hunter Biden business partner, right, on Monday. And so in April, just to give you a little bit of timeline, in April of 2014, as Biden is becoming kind of the point man for the administration when he was vice president in Ukraine, he met with Hunter and Archer. Right after that meeting, those guys get placed on the board of Burisma, right? That seems really interesting.
They were both paid millions of dollars.
Not
alleged.
Millions and millions of dollars. And the fired prosecutor's investigation around Archer, Hunter, and Burisma was about corruption and influencing, get this, U.S. policy towards Ukraine. Who's the point man on this? Joe Biden. How can Hunter Biden influence anything?
Yeah.
He can't even get M&Ms to balance on his penis correctly, right? He can't influence
Allegedly.
anything. And now he's getting paid millions of dollars to be on a board of a foreign energy company when he has no understanding of how that stuff operates in the first place?
Right. So
It's because his dad's influence. That's
He
it.
has people skills, damn it.
yes.
No.
What the hell is
how
wrong
hard
with you
it is?
people?
You know how hard it is to get put on a board of any company. A startup would be hard to get put on the board of, much less an established energy company in Ukraine.
Right.
He didn't go to college to study.
And let's just be honest,
Ukrainian
not
energy.
only is he not, it's not like someone who's underqualified, but, I appreciate his attitude and his zeal.
No.
This is a guy who was, typically speaking, like, he doesn't have a resume, but I like his attitude. Doesn't involve smoking crack with hookers.
perpetual screw up. That's it.
He walks the TPS reports down to
Unbelievable.
the end of the.
If
No,
you can't
Hunter
connect-
Biden wouldn't be able to walk. Those halls would be like leaving Las Vegas. So why right now? And this is this is why today we want to focus on this timeline. They can kind of do this whenever they want, right? So Monday, we're talking about these things happening Monday.
Yeah.
Burisma. Okay. They need to bury that story. And right now, basically, if this moves forward at the pace that you would expect a trial like this, what'll happen is the circus, is the hearing. It'll happen publicly fall 2024.
And you know what'll have to happen?
Fall 2024.
Donald Trump will have to be present in the courtroom. This isn't the E. Jean Carroll case where he can do a deposition and send it in. He'll have to be present and in the courtroom for several weeks as this trial drags on and not campaigning.
Well, here's the thing, though. So it would happen naturally around fall 2024, which is a general election. Or what would happen is if they get a speedy trial, right? Jack Smith, the special counsel, invoked this right to a speedy trial. Could be like August. Could be as primary season heats up.
Yeah.
Just to be
By the
clear.
way-
So it'll either fall right in a general election or right around, as primaries heat up. And it just so happens to be right now in the public eye as the Barisma scandal. There are 17 recordings allegedly is being buried. Zero time on CNN, on MSNBC. Not 1 minute.
It's a huge story. It's potentially, let's assume that both are true. Let's assume that Biden did what he did and Trump did what he did and both are true. Biden's story would be much, 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 much bigger. It would be a much bigger moment in time because you have a vice president who was bought off by a foreign government while in office who is now president.
Well, here's the thing, too. This again, they're creating law, and they can do it for anybody. And this is why Ben Carson and people say this is not the America they grew up in. Right now, so we have this situation where, okay, Biden, we know that he's broken the law. Anyone else, by the way, would likely be hauled out in cuffs. Well, I shouldn't say anyone else. Anyone with an R next to their name or doesn't have a D next to their name.
Yeah.
All right. So protected. Not only protected, but they decided to use what evidence they should be using to investigate Joe Biden. Nothing at all. To impeach Donald Trump for calling Zelensky saying, have you investigated this corruption? So that is a new application, if not creation of a law. Keep in mind, remember E. Jean Carroll, the sexual harassment case? New York specifically opened a special 1-year window allowing for any sexual assault victims to bring forward a civil suit, and the statute of limitation before that was 3 years. So they said, you know what? Okay, let's do this and open it up to, I don't know, let's change it to November. It kind of matches up exactly with Donald Trump in this timeline. Let's make sure we open it up so that let's open up the term of sexual assault. He could have called her sweetie, so it could be considered sexual impropriety. Also, Joe Biden, let's increase taxes up on anyone who's making, how much do you make? $400,000? Anyone over $400,000. None of this shit is happenstance. You can't have these many coincidences. So why are they doing it right now? Why would this fall directly in a general election for Donald Trump or directly in the primaries? Why are they doing this? Well, of course, one of the biggest scandals in the last election. Well, the last election, what would have affected it? Burisma? Before we even had the war, by the way, going on with Ukraine and Russia. At that point in time, that was the biggest burden. Right, that was most. I shouldn't say expensive. It's like gay William Gucci. It was the heaviest baggage for Biden. Were two things: The Burisma scandal, you all know that. They tried to bury it, dismiss it. And the Hunter Biden laptop could not be shared. Those two things changed the election, right? They got rid of all of those things. And right now, Burisma's coming back up, and of course it involves Hunter Biden. They know that that is one of Biden's Achilles heels. Also, slight inclines. So, they don't want that coming out. At this moment in time, of course, we time this so it hurts Donald Trump going into a general. Well, why? Biden is more unpopular than ever, to be clear.
Yeah.
Look at that. Look at that, the popularity, presidential job approval. Trump's more popular than pizza. Biden just ahead of Brussels sprouts, below progeria, but it's neck and neck. It's within the margin of error. Why would they be doing that? Donald Trump continues to lead.
Despite all this.
The Republican primary and the general election. Not just the primary, and the general. Now, to be fair, a lot of other Republicans beat Joe Biden in a general.
Yes.
But Donald Trump wins the primary and a general election, and his favorability rose post-indictment.
It doesn't hurt him sitting in a courtroom. He doesn't have to campaign, and his numbers will soar.
Oh, no, they're doing nothing but covering him right now. They're saying Trump is defiant, and they're saying it in a bad way, like, oh, he's defiant against these things. How dare he? And people on the right are looking at him going, of course he's defiant.
He's defiant. Please.
You guys are trying to tie this guy up and string him up in the
defiance.
court. Yeah. You're trying to make sure that he has no life. Every one of these suits that they're bringing, every one of these charges that have been filed, like where they're saying, oh, in Georgia, he tried to get a guy. No, he didn't. He said there was fraud, and you need to go out and find it. I only need you to find 12,000 votes or something like that. He's saying, I don't need you to go out and find all the fraud. I just need you to find at least some of the fraud. That
Isn't there some in those suitcases that were underneath the desk when you said a pipe broke?
Yeah.
There's got to be something. I don't know. I'm not a poll watcher. I've never seen votes in suitcases at 2 a.m., folks.
He didn't say to make it up.
And then, you know what they fact-checked? PolitiFact, by the way. 100% PolitiFact. I think it's Snopes, Washington Post. Someone can bring up that source. It's a recent story. 100% of the individual contributions from these places, these fact checkers who are supposed to be unbiased, go to Democrats. They fact checked the Georgia cases under the desk. Horrible violation of protocol, if not chain of custody. They said they weren't suitcases, they were Pelican cases. Fact check.
Brand name.
False. Fact check. You're an asshole. The lack of respect.
God. I am so sorry. Wow.
Was that a mashup?
Yeah.
So why is this happening right now? They changed the laws for Donald Trump. Biden is incredibly unpopular. What makes him incredibly unpopular is things like his screw-up son, which, by the way, directly relates to him, as we see with the Ukraine scandal and Burisma. There are developments here this week where issues that affect your not only the world's national security, the world's international security, World War III, that's another piece of baggage for Biden. They want to make that disappear, and they want to ensure that this trial happens either right at the time of a general election or right at the time of pivotal moments for a Republican primary, and just so happens to be affecting the guy who wins both of them.
Yeah.
Don't be led by the nose. No. Biden, again, we've talked about silver lining. Sure, Democrats are really effective. They really are at infiltrating institutions. It's not from the bottom up. It's always from the top down. It has to be. Hey, that's socialism. But they're losing.
I wonder if the question could be answered. It could be asked: do people really care about documents being found at Mar-a-Lago? Really, I don't care. And you know what? No. I think they're far more secure at one of the greatest estates in the country. That you can't. It's impenetrable, versus a garage somewhere in Delaware or wherever his place is.
Yeah,
unbelievable. And a sitting president.
Yeah.
Versus a
senator or a VP.
I just don't care. I don't see it as an issue.
No, I know. What they're trying to say is, well, he could potentially. Hey, you know what?
He could run a mini White House from there. I mean, what are they alleging?
Well, let me give you something else. You know what? Let's say that Donald Trump. Let's say that at some point he did obstruct, saying like, I don't want to give these over. Could there be a reason? And this is just a hypothetical. We don't know. Could it be because maybe he knew that if he was going to run for office, there were damaging documents? For example, they spied on his campaign. Could it be that maybe he wants to make sure that he has proof of the corruption of former Vice President Joe Biden and his business dealings in Ukraine? Could it be that that might be relevant if they're going to try and selectively indict and enforce the law against him? Could it be that he's going, all right, you know what? I'm going to make sure that I keep, not saying that he did, not saying that they're alleging that, but I'm saying, hey, wouldn't that also be well within his right as someone who's president of the United States if other people are trying to assassinate him politically? And as far as his legacy, there are a million reasons that Donald Trump could have those documents. There really aren't that many reasons that Biden would have them. Go through the hypotheticals. Why? Why would Biden, a vice president at that time who had dealings with a foreign nation effectively, why would he have classified documents next to his Corvette? It's just, again, we just have to, this is what we know. All references are available at louderwithcrowder.com. The timeline, it's undeniable.
6 years later, by the way.
Yeah.
Let's just make sure, at least 6 years later, 6 years after he left office-ish, give or take, maybe 7 years after he left office, he still has those documents. I thought you went through the same process that every vice president, president goes through, where they go and make sure that you get these documents kind of in order, and then they get a facility near you, and they go through them, and they determine what's yours and what's not yours. I thought that happened already, Joe.
Yeah.
Did you just forget you had the boxes next to the Corvette?
Or in Chinatown?
This is about...
Or at Penn?
Yeah. This is about him losing. This is about the fact that every metric that we have available to us, and imagine, my God, if big tech and if the media and if Washington, D.C., including, by the way, the swamp creatures who are Republicans, imagine if all of that wasn't tilted one direction, what these polls would look like.
Yeah.
Biden doesn't have a chance in hell in a country that votes honestly and the votes are counted honestly if the media acts honestly. Not a chance in hell. But the good news is, hey, I hear there's always an ambassadorship open for him in Africa. Oh, no, it should say he doesn't know one African from 1 billion.
Watch Louder with Crowder live, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.